I've been in the entrepreneur space for like 15, 16 years. And it wasn't until I went to the executive MBA program that I even realized that there's a completely different human out there, which is the corporate person. Because in my cohort, with all the respect to the world of them, there's 35 of us, but only about 4 or 5, maybe 6 are entrepreneurs. Everybody else is, VP track, C-suite,
Right.
whatever. And they have all fairly impressive careers, but just the way they look at a problem is completely different than an entrepreneur will look at it. Because maybe they have all the budget in the world. And as an entrepreneur, you're like, there's no more money.
Right.
So you have to be way more scrappy. But at the same time, there's some individuals that, there's always somebody else to fix their problems for them.
Yeah.
But where in the entrepreneur world is you're usually an island.
Yeah, I think that it's a good thing that not everybody wants the same thing and is a good fit at the right time. If everybody was like, at their best at a 2 to 3 person company, who would you hire when you're at 1,000 people or at 10,000 people, right? So I think that there's like different people who are better fits at different stages of a life cycle of a company. And I think that, that's what makes the economy work, right? Is that not everybody really thrives at, the handful of people stage, and then, other people don't thrive when something is at 100,000 person stage, and then there's everything in between. It really is amazing how much things change from when you're just a handful of people to when you're 10 or 20 to you're 50 to 100. Then you hit a couple hundred and it's totally different, to then you get into a big organization. I've had the experience of all of those, and it's just incredible how different it is. And I think some of those people that, are more corporate minded, they can be super valuable at scale, but it's just... Yeah. It's like it's a different skill set, a different personality, a different mindset. And I think that, people are always looking to understand each other. I think when you're, what I found when I joined a really large company was that there were a lot of those people who were super inspired by entrepreneurship and startups. They had always been in corporate, and they really wanted to learn and get some of that DNA and that mindset and understanding, what's that lightning in a bottle thing? How do I get some of that? And then I think when you're, at an early stage company, or you're at a growth company especially, and you look up and you kind of feel like constantly, we don't know what the we're doing. And I hope it's okay if I swear on the show, because I'm, guilty of that far too often. But you feel that way, that you just have no idea what you're doing. There's that constant feeling of we don't have our shit together. And you kind of look at these companies that are very well-oiled, seasoned, have been around a long time, and it feels like, and they've laid their playbooks out, and you pitch against them, and you're like, oh my God, they've got all this stuff really well, oiled and ironed out. And I think as you grow, you kind of crave that, right? You're like, man, this is so chaotic down here. We're agile, we can move quickly, we can adapt on a dime, we can make decisions on the spot. But you never feel like that you just have things really as well oiled as you'd like them to be. And I think one thing I have learned, at least, is that all these really fancy pitch decks and things that seem super well organized and oh man, this machine, it really just, everybody knows exactly how it works and everything. There's definitely some BS in that, in the shiny slides. At the same time, you down here, you know more than you think you do, and you don't really need to be that, buttoned up, but you can learn from each other, right? I think that's my big takeaway, was that, having had those experiences, I'm like, there is really a lot to learn from, all these different people and these different, life cycle stages of a company.